What's up, Internet people? Hope you're all having a wonderful day. I'm here to tell you about my experience with the Nuss procedure. If you are watching this video, you probably already know that the Nuss procedure is an operation to correct pectus excavatum, and that pectus excavatum is a deformity of the chest causing an indentation in the chest. This can affect both men and women, and it generally has a negative impact on the heart and lungs. I had the Nuss procedure a little over 2 years ago at UCLA Pediatric Center in Los Angeles. It takes a little over 2 years to complete the process. I was told I would get a good result from the procedure. The surgeon told me I would get a better result from the Ravage procedure. The Ravage procedure is a more invasive surgery where the chest wall is cut open and cartilage is removed and repositioned to reshape the chest. Similar to the Nuss procedure, with the Ravage procedure, a metal bar is placed in the chest. However, in the case of the Ravage, the bar is removed after 6 months, not 2 years. The Nuss procedure is considered the less invasive procedure of the two. And these are the only two actual physical corrections for pectus excavatum currently available in the US. There's another procedure that is currently being tested involving magnets that pull an implanted bar to correct the deformity that is being performed on children at this point. With the Nuss procedure, I did not get a good result. This has been very distressing to me as the deformity affects me both physically and psychologically. After I woke up from having the bar removed, I looked down at my chest and was immediately depressed. I would say the procedure only improved my deformity by about 5%. Now, what you're seeing here are images of my chest. You might be thinking to yourself that it doesn't look too bad and maybe I shouldn't be complaining. And I'll get to that in a few minutes. What I will say right now is that part of the problem with these images is that I don't have good lighting. This image here probably shows the severity of my deformity the best. Unfortunately, it's blurry. Now, these were all taken within the first 2 weeks after I had the Nuss bar removed. So I want to start with pain. The Nuss procedure is incredibly painful. Incredibly painful. This was perhaps the most pain I've ever been in, and I say that having had medical professionals on more than one occasion show surprise at how well I handle pain. And I'm not trying to say, oh look, I'm really tough, I have a high pain tolerance. No, I'm only trying to impress upon you how painful the procedure is. Even if this wasn't the most intense pain I have ever felt, it certainly was the longest I have ever been in that much pain. After the Nuss procedure, I had to stay in the hospital for 3 days to be observed by medical staff. And during this time, I heard some of the nurses claim that this is the most painful operation they ever see. To deal with the pain, I was given oxycodone. I was taking 3 oxy a day. This is the actual photo of my prescription. Taking those 3 pills a day was not enough to deal with the pain. So they increased my dosage to 4 pills a day, which made a big difference. Now, I think the pain was greater for me than it is for the typical patient, and I think this is because I had the procedure when I was 40 years old. So my bones were already much more set in place than they would be for, say, a 14-year-old. And I had to stay on the oxy for 11 and a half months. I was told I would be on it for only about 3 months, but the pain was just too great, so I had to stay on for almost a year. Now, this was a problem, being on the oxy, because the pharmacy didn't want to give me the pills. They operated under the assumption that I was abusing the drug or selling it or something. I don't know. It also became an issue as the pharmacy I was going to didn't have a large stock of the medication, so there was a risk of me not getting the painkillers. I want to take a moment to talk about addiction. Some of the doctors I saw during that 11 and a half month period I was on the oxy claimed that I was addicted to it. I did not get addicted to oxy. When the pain subsided, I stopped taking the drug. I never felt any kind of craving for the oxycodone. I want to take this opportunity to talk about addiction. Addiction is not dependent on a drug itself. It is simply the human condition. Everybody wants to feel good. Some people can find good feelings in a drug. Some drugs apparently mimic the release of dopamine in the brain, which is typically what addicts are trying to get, a hit of dopamine. Addiction is not a disease. I think that's the medical community making stuff up so they can more easily be seen as the treatment for addiction and have another avenue for making money. Addiction is simply a craving that gets out of control. I've never been on any medication that made me feel euphoric. I've never felt a craving for any medication. And those are my thoughts on addiction. If you disagree with me, oh, good. I look forward to you proving me wrong in the comment section. I had the following side effects from Oxy. At first, it made me a little bit drowsy. Just a little bit, not so much that it interfered with my life in any way, but I was still a little drowsy. And that went away after a few weeks. It made me constipated. All narcotic painkillers do that. It gave me a mild headache and it gave me insomnia. I couldn't take it any less than 4 hours before going to bed. So in the end, I was glad to be off of it. I still have like half a bottle I have to get rid of somehow. Coming home after the procedure, I came across another big issue. It became apparent that first night that I couldn't sleep in bed. My abdominal muscles took a heavy blow from the procedure because the abdominals get all moved and stretched. So I wasn't strong enough to lay down and I wasn't strong enough to sit up. I don't own a recliner, so on that first night, I got home and I piled every pillow and blanket I had at the head of my bed and leaned back on that, which was difficult, but I managed to do it. Now, this wasn't enough of an incline to allow me to get out of bed. I needed help getting up, and unfortunately, I was dependent on my girlfriend to get me out of bed. She didn't know how to pull me out of bed, and I think this is typical of women. I don't think that most women go around moving heavy objects, so they don't understand how to put their weight behind things when they are trying to move them. So it was a really big issue for us because she barely spoke English at the time. So I couldn't explain to her how to pull me out of bed by using her whole body weight. She kept trying to pull me simply by flexing her biceps. And she was not strong enough to lift me with just her biceps. In the end, I ended up sleeping in an office chair with my feet propped up, leaning forward into my knees, or with my feet propped up, leaning back. Most of the time, that was the only way I could get comfortable. So be aware that you'll need a recliner and a good support team when you get home. After I went off the oxycodone, I noticed a pain in my right side, starting at the incision site and moving around my back and up, where I would get a lot of pain and some numbness in this whole area here. This pain was excruciating. It was so painful I would tense up and stop everything. And it would come on randomly when I would move the wrong way. So of course I went back to UCLA to get checked out, and all they could tell me was I had a lot of inflammation and that I should take ibuprofen. Now what I should have done was gone back on the oxycodone because I needed to relieve the pain, but I'm not a person to use a cover-up. If there's a problem, I want to fix it. I don't want to just cover it over and pretend like it doesn't exist. Ibuprofen reduces swelling and inflammation, so I took that instead. The oxy just relieves pain. I took so much ibuprofen to deal with the excruciating pain I was having that I messed up my stomach, and I have what appears to be permanent stomach irritation. It's been over a year now, and I still have stomach problems. So hopefully that goes away, fingers crossed. On top of the ibuprofen, my general practitioner prescribed me a topical anti-inflammatory gel that has its own set of side effects. Fortunately, I haven't suffered from any of those yet, and I say yet because supposedly I can have side effects later on in life, well after I've stopped taking the topical anti-inflammatory. The Nuss bar has now been removed, and I still have pain and numbness in my right side. It does appear to be getting better slowly, so that's good news. Let's hope that continues. After I had the Nuss bar removed, I was sent home with bandages. After a few days, I removed the bandages. Now, this whole time, my incision sites are really itchy. And under the bandages, they applied steri strips, which are little cloth adhesive strips. I was having an allergic reaction to the adhesives of the steri strips. So I had to remove those as well. I wasn't supposed to take those off. I was supposed to let them fall off, but the irritation was way too much, and I just removed them early. Didn't really care for UCLA. I don't think the surgeons are very good. Now, the surgical nurses and some of the recovery nurses were fine. In fact, some of them were excellent, but everything else about the place is not so good. Their billing department is really bad. I had on one occasion, I had to provide documentation that I had made a payment because they kept insisting that I owed them money. So if you can, avoid UCLA. It's just too much ridiculousness there. Now, I've told you that I didn't get a good result from the Nuss procedure. Immediately after the bar came out, I noticed it was harder for me to breathe. I also noticed that my heart doesn't seem to be working as efficiently, and I get chest pains in the center of my chest when my heart rate is elevated. This is just like what I experienced before I had the implant. When I had the implant, I could breathe more easily, my heart worked better, and I wouldn't get chest pains from exertion. I had chest pains from the surgery, of course. It also improved my sinuses for some reason. I don't know how those two things correlate, and neither do the doctors, but there was a definite improvement in my sinuses. I would say that visually I was only about 80% improved with the implant, which is significant, but I expected a better result because I was told I was going to get a good result, and I would say like 90% is a good result. I was also aware that the deformity would get worse after the bar was removed, but I was told it would only get a little worse. And as I stated earlier, it was only seeing like a 5% improvement. My chest slowly collapsed more and more over the few days after the surgery, down to where it was only about a 5% improvement. But it was obvious right after the surgery that I didn't get a good result. I can't say how much of an improvement you will have with the procedure. Everybody's going to have a different result, I'm sure. The only reason I can think of for getting such a poor result is my age. My bones are already finished growing and pretty well set in place. I've come across people claiming adults need to have 2 bars implanted, and I only had 1, so that could have been a solution to this problem as well. I had to do some research to make this video, and in doing so, I came across this guy right here, Riley Byrne, on YouTube. Now, he claims you can greatly improve pectus excavatum with exercise. I've been doing the Cobra stretch, which is one of the stretches he recommends, and I could say my deformity is now 25% improved from what I had before I started the Nuss procedure, simply because of that stretch. So that's what you're seeing in those photos, that I look not too bad, right? You can tell I have a pectus excavatum, but it's not terrible. You might want to check this out. Check out Riley before you go through the surgery, right? Maybe even hire him to help reduce or even eliminate your pectus excavatum. I don't know what he charges. You might think that he is too expensive, but let me tell you, the Nuss procedure cost me like $5,000 after insurance. So is he going to charge you that much? I doubt it. I ended up with a bunch of health issues too, on top of that $5,000 when all was said and done. No real improvement. I don't know this guy. I'm not trying to support my buddy or get a kickback from him. You can also check out Athlean X. They have a video on how to exercise pectus excavatum away. It's another YouTube channel. I'll leave the links in the description to both these channels. But I hope you got something out of this video. I don't want anybody else to go through this procedure and get nothing positive out of it. I ended up with a bunch of health issues and a smaller pocketbook. What I'll do is in the future I'll make more videos if I have any updates regarding my pectus deformity. Thanks for listening, and good luck with your chest.